Indeed. And I have to apologize for my headwear. I'm out in the woods skiing and I do not have professionally viewable hair. So I have to keep my hat on, which I think in Amherst people don't really mind.
What's the photograph behind you, Robin?
Oh, it's an oil painting. I don't know. It's not, I
It's
mean, it
very
looks
nice.
like it could be from this area.
Yeah.
Pretty. I'm just a little west of, about an hour west of Saratoga Springs in the, I think it's the Adirondack National Forest. Hi, Madeline. Hi, Pat.
Hello, can't
Evening.
seem to get my video going, but I can hear you, so that's fine.
Okay. Okay, so at 7:01, Antonia left a message that she was under the weather and without a voice, so she won't be attending. So I think this is everybody that we're expecting. I already let Walker know. I am in the middle of at the edge of the Adirondack National Forest, and I'm on a weak Wi-Fi. So, so far it seems like it's going well, but if I start to get spotty, I might need somebody to just kind of manage the discussion. So that's basically it here. I'm gonna do my little gallery view and then we can get started. Sure, that's not what I want. Okay. So welcome everyone, commissioners and members of the public to this Amherst Historical Commission public hearing. In accordance with Massachusetts law, this public hearing of the town of the Amherst Historical Commission is being conducted via remote participation. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so via Zoom or telephone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. Via technological means, a hyperlink to the hearing has been posted on the town's online calendar. Before we open the meeting, we're going to have a roll call for attendance. So when you hear your name, just attest that you're here. Hetty Startup,
Yeah.
Patricia Oth,
Present,
Antonia Brillenberg, not present, Madeline Helmer,
Present.
and Robin Fordham also present. So at this point, I will open the hearing. And you know what, Walker, I'm forgetting already. Do we need a vote to open the hearing? Is that correct?
That's a yes.
Yeah, that's how I
Oh,
vote.
okay. Okay.
Like,
Okay.
muted.
So I'm assuming we don't need a motion. Do we need a motion for that, or we just take a vote to open the hearing?
You could probably just take a vote.
Okay, so we'll have a roll call vote to open this public hearing. So this is a public hearing held in accordance with the provisions of Article 3.60 of Amherst General Bylaws, the preservation of historically significant buildings. This hearing is being held on Monday, March 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. to consider demolition application request for 1146 North Pleasant Street. Applicant Wesley Parker, a request to demolish a circa 1890 carriage house. Roll call vote to open the hearing. Hetty Startup,
I vote yes.
Patricia Oth,
yes.
Madeline Helmer,
Yes.
and Robin Fordham. I vote yes. With that, we officially open the public hearing at 7:05 p.m. Usually at this point, the first item is to welcome the applicants and have their presentation. So if Walker, if you can invite in the applicant, I assume they're in.
So I see two Carrie Parkers and Michael Holden. Are you all three gonna want to be in? Or can you raise your hand if you want to be allowed to talk, I guess. Not sure who is here. All right. So yeah, you should be able to talk now.
Hi, so this is Wes Parker. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm probably under, I think this computer says it's Carrie Parker, but it's me.
Okay.
Um, so, uh, as I, as we discussed earlier today with the folks that were on site, we've been here in this property for a long time. It's my grandparents' house. And we've taken measures to maintain the structures that seemed maintainable and workable, including the front house, back house, and the large barn. We've already demoed and rebuilt where we had a shed that had been a butcher shop many years ago. The structure that we're seeking to demolish has been used as a garage that will fit one vehicle, but we really need more vehicle parking. So, that's part of the plan with the demolition. But the structure itself is in a state where it's beginning to twist structurally. It wasn't built on a foundation. And at some point, if nothing happens, it's going to collapse. Which represents some level of safety threat, although I don't know, the timing on that. But it's definitely showing signs that it's continuing to degrade. So we'd like to remove the structure, which we consider an unusable structure. We'd like to make an effort to have it removed so that, beams can be repurposed. So we would seek a demolition contractor that would repurpose anything that is usable coming out of that structure. And then, yeah, we plan to proceed with a replacement structure on site, slightly different location. So that's kind of an overview, and any questions I'm happy to address.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions from commissioners regarding Mr. Parker's information that he's presented for us?
No.
Okay. All right. Great, thank you then. Thank you for that information, and thanks for hosting our staff and commissioner this afternoon for site visit. We really like to see these properties up close. It's much appreciated. So with that, I would turn to Walker. Is there any additional information from the town, or if Hetty Hetty or Walker would like to provide information from the site visit, now would be a good time to do that.
Do you want me to share those Sanborn maps you sent out right before?
Sure, yeah, I just sent these right before the meeting, just.
Yeah, so if everybody's seen them, that's fine, but I could also share them on my screen if you're interested.
Do you have more photos of the building or?
The only photo that was submitted is the one that's in the packet.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to just put those up there, Walker?
Yeah.
This is the 1916 Sanborn map. I don't have it in here. The recorded macros does mention the Sanborn maps 1916 and 1930. I think earlier than 1916, they don't sample that particular area of town in North Amherst. But this upper image, you can see in the context, if you scroll up a little bit, you can see where there's Meadow Street and North Pleasant Street, and the smaller building to the south there is the carriage house with I'm not sure what that attached structure was. Maybe that was what
I think
Just-
I walked on that
Was-
under
was
the snow.
And then Walker, scroll down. Since it was so hard to view, I did a little
Wow.
close up. So you can see that it's clearly labeled Carriage House 1916, which is just on the edge of, having done some research in the area, it's just on the edge of when carriage houses and barns and stables were converted to automobile garages. My understanding from the Marcus Form is that the 1930 Sandra map, which I couldn't get my hands on, does show, or actually, no, that's not true. I took a quick look at it. It is labeled A for auto, which I think is always fun to see these buildings change over time. So that's that. Hetty, did you want to talk about the site visit?
I just took a lot of photographs, and Mr. Parker has some pictures that I'm keen to copy for the town, so that we have a record of interesting things that happened in and around that building. I think one of the things that is intriguing about it is that when it was converted for use of a car, the car was quite large. So they simply at some point opened the back wall of the building, and that is still there. So I have a photograph of that, which I will make sure Walker has copies of. So it is talked. It's quite noticeable from the back of the building. One of the doors is not serviceable at all. There was at one point a staircase, and I think there is still a staircase, although we didn't see it, to a space upstairs in the in the building. So it's more complicated inside than you would be led to believe. But I think it's not the same date as the house, which was built in the 1830s. I think Mr. Parker said it was about 1890.
Yeah, the Marcus Form dates it to 1890, 1900, and 1900, I believe there was one of the Dickinson families living there, and the carriage house is mentioned in their, I think in their tax records. 1890, not quite as clear, but about that time period.
Yeah, he said they had borders at one point, and I'm involved with the Mill River History Trail project, and we're finding a lot of that. We're finding Dickinsons all over the place, but
Yeah.
we're also finding that there are houses where people are taking in people for, to get extra income.
Yeah.
So
And
Hetty,
then,
can you still hear me? Am
oh
I
yeah, we
still
can
able-
still hear you, yeah.
Oh, I'm dying to chirp in here. So Hetty, I did look and I found photos
great.
that show both the carriage house and that building that's like diagonal. I think that must have been like I mean, it's just like in the side photo, so you don't have a clear view exactly of what it looked like, but I think it might have been like a chicken coop or something. And then I have photos. I was wrong. I said that there was wood piled up behind the carriage house. No, the wood was piled up right next to the house. And
Mhm.
behind the carriage house is where they were hanging laundry everywhere. And there
Oh,
were some
really?
grapevines that were there. And yeah, I think you'll be kind of excited to see some of the photos. It also shows some of the destruction that happened when the Dutch elm disease came in. So we have people working and taking down trees. I also have pictures of when the hurricane came through. It was at 39, somewhere
38.
around there.
38.
I also have pictures of the house. You can see on the front, there was a front porch, and my grandparents took that down. I have pictures of the porch still there. And the chimney that you were taking a picture of, that was added, they think in like 1911, because the original pictures of the chimneys, they were internal to the house. And the original entrance into the house was, remember I was saying how they used to throw charcoal, not charcoal, but coal down? So I actually have that old, where they would throw that down. So I've got a lot of photos, both of the property and looking back towards what is 116 now, which are just hay fields that have the big old hay, like the cones, the way they used to stack the bales. So yeah, I found some cool stuff. I think you'll like to see that. And Dickinson, yes. So my grandmother told me Dickinson's lived in the house. I think there was a doctor who was was it a Dickinson or was it Fish or Fisk? There was
It's-
actually
yeah,
a doctor's office, that little, so that on the main house where it kind of shows like a door and I don't know, a room, that was a doctor's office. For one of the I think after the Dickinsons, I think. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was dying to share that. Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. That's really wonderful. There is a pretty extensive history on Macris that was put together, it looks like in 2014. And yeah, you're correct. It's a Dr. Fish. Interestingly, yeah, I'm just looking here. The garage itself has a point in Macris. It doesn't have its own record, but it has a point in Macris. And it is called the Dr. Fish Carriage House Garage.
Huh.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. We could do a continuation sheet on this record to add that to the Macris documentation. I appreciate all that information. Thank you. Okay. Let's see, where are we in our? I think unless there's other comment from members of the commission, we could move to a public comment before we get into our official deliberation. So since I don't hear any of my commissioners speaking up, if there is anyone in the public who would like to provide public comment at this time, you can feel free to raise your hand and Walker will let you into the meeting. If you could introduce yourselves and limit your comments to about 3 minutes, that would be great. I'm just going to give a minute for people to raise their hands. We may not need that. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we will move on. So we can move on into our general discussion for commissioners. The question before us, as this property, this resource has been determined to be historically significant, is whether it is preferably preserved according to our bylaw. Is there anybody who would like to go ahead and start the discussion off with their opinion and feelings about this? I just feel like a teacher at this point.
Don't all speak at
Who am I
once.
gonna call on?
I'm really impressed with the amount of information that there is about this little building. And I think when it had its porch, it probably would have read as a more integrated group of buildings, you know, based on the site itself, as a series of, you know, attached, related farm buildings and a farmhouse. It's really interesting that chimney that I took a picture of is not original. So it's obviously got some really interesting moments historically in terms of North Amherst history in particular. And I think that in itself makes it historically significant as a contributing building to a larger property.
And do you have thoughts on its feelings about whether it is, we would consider it preferably preserved, or whether you really as a member of the commission?
Well, ideally, yes. I mean, it would be preferably preserved, you know, but
I
it's,
mean, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to lead you, Hetty. I mean, I can give just kind of an overview, especially since we have our applicant here.
Yeah.
The question before us is that determining a building is preferably preserved gives the commission the opportunity to impose a delay on demolition. Even in the case of imposing a full 12-month delay, which is the limit of what the commission can impose, if no action is taken in those 12 months, the applicant can just let that period expire, and then the demolition can go forward after a 12-month period. The purpose of imposing a demolition delay is to allow for possible preservation of the structure. And the idea around what is preferably preserved is that its loss would be significant to the historic context of the area. I think what gets challenging for us and what I come up against is particularly with individual property owners and particularly with smaller buildings like this is unless you have a building that's really reached the point, we did have one barn before us that was determined, there were extensive efforts by the owners to try to rehab it, and it was really impossible. You know, the preservation of a structure can be economically unfeasible. So even something that's tilting or, sort of the question of like, what's possible? Well, if you have enough money, that can determine what's possible. So thinking about whether a structure is preferably preserved relates to how it relates to the other buildings, what is the integrity of the site, and then even if we come to that conclusion, there's an expectation that imposing a demolition delay would be for the purpose of a realistic expectation of a outcome of preservation. We absolutely appreciate the reuse of historic materials and also the relocation of buildings, but we don't consider those to be preservation efforts per se. There are historically sensitive deconstructions, but so that's just kind of my spiel there, because I struggle a lot of times with things that I feel strongly about how they contribute to the site, and then going from there, what the realistic outcome is in imposing a delay. So, sorry, Hetty, I took over there. I felt like I was leading you down a path that you didn't ask to be led down. So, Madeline or Pat, do you want to chime in at all?
It's Pat. I'm interested in both Hetty's comment and Wes Parker's comment about the building being torqued and not having a base structure. And so it would seem that that would make it more difficult to try to preserve, given the situation as it stands now.
Mr. Parker, did you just want to make a further comment on that?
Sure. So, again, as I pointed out to the folks during the site visit, there's nobody that has more interest in caring for that structure than I do. But I'm also pragmatic about the realities of the structure. And I've had a series of folks come in, one of which, Hetty met briefly, because the big barn, that had to be saved. We had rot in, I thought all 4 posts, but the guy who did the work said it was a couple posts, and then he had a bunch of work to do along the sill. And so we preserved the barn, which is a really significant structure that will continue to require resources from my family to maintain that structure. And I'm committed to that structure. I am not committed to keeping the structures that the contractors have told me they are not worth saving because they are structurally deficient. So just as we removed the shed and we put up a in-law apartment for my mom and my dad and my grandmother to come to, and these are all buildings that are basically being built for my family. And this is a family property for going on 100 years.
Yeah.
And it is our wish to continue to live here and maintain some families in North Amherst when houses all around me are being taken over by students who are not, I mean, the owners are not going to be taking care of those buildings the way and you know, I would. And so because I've had, and I'm going to count 3 contractors look at that structure and say not worth saving, it's going to come down. And if you delay it 12 months, you can delay it 12 months, but it will come down.
Right, understood.
Yeah,
So-
I have a,
Go ahead, Madeline, yeah.
I think sometimes we can implement this demolition delay to work with owners to develop alternative solutions. But I understand that this structure itself it would interfere with just the feasibility of living in this house. Just being able to devote your resources to maintaining the house and the barn and then I also think that the garage, the structure itself is sort of separate from the house. I mean, just physically, and there's this sort of site that is the house attached to the big barn, and we can kind of keep that will be intact, even with the loss of this building. And also, chronologically, this isn't part of the sort of period of significance for the house necessarily. I mean, I think the most significant period would be right when it was constructed. And it is very visible from the road, and that just sort of arrangement of buildings is so distinctive. I mean, just that you don't want to interfere with that by removing it. So that is something that I'm hesitant towards, and I would really urge owner for any new building to have it pushed back, from the street to and I don't know if that means we would need to work with them or if that's just a piece of advice, but I don't want to interfere with that that visibility from the road that you can see this historic sort of the site is so intact right now with how those buildings work together.
Yeah, I think that's a good point and kind of how I feel, Madeline. I would say that in terms of, and I just want to be like really gentle here. This is not necessarily where I think we're going, but one of the things that we have 2 options. One is to advise. We can always do that. We can take our advice. In a situation where we felt really strongly about something, and a redesign, which I don't necessarily think is the case here, the demolition delay could be imposed to reach an agreement about a redesign of whatever would come there. But I don't necessarily think that we're there. I don't know that there's that much more discussion that we need to have. I think we need to move toward a motion. And so we have before us the option of a motion to see the structure is not preferably preserved. And we have the option to make a motion to determine that the structure is preferably preserved. And I think I just kind of test the waters there for what, if someone wants to make a motion, that we feel like we've come to the end of our discussion, this would be the time to do that. And then we could go forward with a vote.
I think I'm still interested in hearing other commission members' sort of thoughts on this.
I mean, I would say that my thought, and I just really struggle with, I really struggle with, I think the way that the bylaw is presented toward me, I had this problem last time, where I feel like on an intellectual level, solely, I would say, oh, it would be better if this building were retained. It lends, particularly with, Massachusetts, old houses, big house, little house, back house, barn, having done a whole research paper on garages and carriage houses, and I'm being interested in that whole history. It's one more thing that gives you a sense of the progression of time over the site. The site is in a village center. It hasn't lost its integrity of site, and on and on and on. And the other part of me feels like there's no real path towards preservation here. And this is where I think that I get stuck with our bylaw, and that it's totally reasonable expectation to grant a demolition permit to the owner, because we just don't have a good case of, of a rebuild of this property. So last time I tried to circumvent things by suggesting we vote that it was preferably preserved, but allowed for the demolition, which I think is, in that case, it had a little bit more to do with the design plan in place. But I think here that, I'm just really stuck, but I think I just lean toward, I feel like I'm moving backwards from feeling like it's appropriate to allow for the demolition, and that always makes me feel uncomfortable. But I do feel.
Yeah, I think that if if we were a historic district commission, we would usher through, a sensitive reconstruction here, and that would be the reach of this commission, but it's not. So it's
Right, exactly. So, I mean, the option is to put forth a motion for not seeing it as preferably preserved, and a suggestion of, you could make a design suggestion that the owner could take into consideration, or we could skip that.
Well, I heard a couple of you say to move the new structure back as far as possible from the street, I guess, from the street view. So that's something that could be considered, although I seem to remember there was a pretty steep drop off from behind the building. So that might
Yeah,
be,
and I don't think that
that
we
would be
want.
quite complicated. Having seen the site.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, certainly there are, I've heard of other cases where, there's more, it would require a more heavy hand to make that a condition. Would require a real heavy hand from our commissioners.
Right,
And
right.
I think that I think that we really only have the space to make just, a general advisement. And I just want to reiterate my appreciation for the owner and their history and what they're doing. And this is, we're just struggling with the historic fabric of this. It is, all those reasons make sense. And I apologize for the delayed deliberation here.
I think you put it very well, Robin, in terms of the sort of different facets that we're trying to consider. And I would like to make a motion that we allow the demolition to go ahead.
Okay, so Hetty has made, to clarify, Hetty, you've made a motion to to determine this structure not preferably preserved. That would be the, yep, okay, and Hetty is saying yes to that. Do we have a second to that motion? And
I
Madeline has
second.
a second, okay. We have an opportunity for further discussion. I'm guessing that we've pretty much discussed ourselves out. So in that case, we'll move to a roll call vote. The vote before us is to affirm that the structure at 1146 North Pleasant Street, the 1890 circa carriage house is not preferably preserved. So I will start with Madeline, your vote.
Yes.
Hetty,
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
And I also will vote yes. So that is a 4-0 vote. The structure is not preferably preserved, which means that the demolition permit can go forward. And Mr. Parker, I appreciate your patience. And I'm assuming at this point, Walker, you will be in touch with the applicant for next steps, correct?
Yes, so I will go online and finish out the online application and you'll get a certificate saying that your demolition was approved by the committee and then you can proceed with your building permit.
And to add, Mr. Parker, I'm just delighted with the amount of history that you have on the house. And one of the things that we are trying to do is add to the MACRIS records. That's the state level records that are available online about the history of the house. So anything that you can provide us, we can work on adding as a continuation sheet to that record, and that history will be maintained at the state level.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Okay. So now our public hearing has ended and we need a vote to close the hearing. I can't remember if we need, okay, so moved. Thank you. So I'll second. We'll have a vote to close the hearing. Hetty,
Aye.
Pat,
yes.
Madeline.
Yes.
And I also vote aye. So the public meeting is officially closed at 7:37 p.m. Appreciate everybody's attendance and patience. And Walker, did we want to, are we just going to go for our April meeting? I don't think we have a date for that since we weren't able to.
Yeah, it's up to you because we had to cancel the public meeting part of this meeting. We could either meet in a couple weeks and finish the agenda or we can hold off. The only thing of any urgency might be the discussion of the memorandum of agreement for the Jones Library is something that you don't sign off on, but the Historical Commission is referenced pretty extensively throughout the document. So Madeline and Hetty and I have been kind of looking through and trying to make sure that it's accurate to what was actually
Yeah.
discussed.
Bob Parent said that they expect it to be finalized this week. So
That's what he said, yeah.
Great.
And we can't really discuss that tonight because it's not on the agenda, but
yeah. No,
I
I know.
will email
Do you
you,
have
but I
Do you
had
have a date? Sorry, do you have a date preference, Madeline, for when we would meet again? Can that wait till April, or do you want to meet sometime in March? 17th, 24th.
Well, I think we were just discussing this because if we need to discuss this MOA, or if it would just be too late anyways if we met in March. I mean,
Yeah, I think that might just have to be, I'll send you my thoughts over email.
okay,
and
we'll just,
you can see what you think.
so our planned meeting is for April
7th.
7th.
Okay.
Do we,
Can we
what's
back
everybody's
up?
preference?
I mean, without discussing the MOA, I mean, there are things in there that I'm really unhappy about. But
So Walker, I mean,
can we meet earlier than April 7th?
well, that's what I'm
us
sort of
any-
asking. Is there a date, and I have to be careful here because I can't say anything, but
Yeah.
is there a date before, so it's the 3rd now, is there a
Yeah.
date before the next meeting that you feel like would meet that need, that we could attend to the agenda that wasn't, that we didn't have tonight,
Well,
basically.
this week is the
Yeah,
deadline,
they were hoping to
so-
get it signed by the 6th, so.
which is
they
like
were-
the March 6th.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then Teddy and
Tomorrow,
and
actually.
Walker should just take the discussion off
I think that's probably the way to do it, yeah.
meeting form. Okay, all right. So I'll leave it to you guys to discuss outside of a public meeting.
Yeah, you'll have to, I mean, trying to avoid discussion.
Yeah,
Obviously outside. but
exactly. Yeah,
I
right.
can-
right,
I can
yeah.
be a go-between kind of, and.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you all.
Mhm.
all right. So then our next meeting would be April 7th at
Yeah, I don't
7.
think there was anything else urgent, so.
Okay,
Can I
Great.
just ask a question? It's Pat.
sure.
If this review is going to be outside of a meeting, is there going to be a written comment? And if so, could that be distributed to the historical commission? So we
Yeah, I think,
have an appreciation of what's going to be said, and if we have any problem with that, we can have a voice.
so the MOA itself was sent out, I believe, to all commission members. But perhaps
Yes.
not, okay, so. If you want to read through that and provide any comments on that, that's currently what the town and MHC are reviewing. The historical commission may or may not have the ability to actually make changes to it at this point, but you can provide comments, I think. So
I just
that's,
wanted to read through it and check the veracity of all the statements they include in there. That's
yeah,
basically all that. Yeah, I'm not even sure if we can do that, but I just wanted to email them and if there's
think
anything
that-
that wasn't reflected actually in the hearings, because we're referenced quite heavily in it. So that's
I
all.
think that probably the cleanest way to do this is to have each of you individually email me with any comments, additions, edits, etc. that you might have. I can respond individually with my the thoughts I had when I was reading through it, not having been at the original hearings, and then I
Yeah.
can compile those and
We
send
can't like
down.
change the stipulations or anything. We can just, it's
Yeah.
just about basically
Yeah, if
editing,
there's
like
something that didn't
proofreading.
happen, yeah, something that you think got left out that was important or is just misphrased and misrepresented, would be good to know.
So at some point, we'll all be able to be privy to the comments.
Yeah, if everybody sends their comments, I can compile them and have them on one document that I can send back to everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, let's try and do that very soon. Like,
Over the next couple days.
yeah, our deadline is in 3 days, so
Mhm.
so be good to do that in the next 2.
So see you guys in April.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good
Enjoy
night.
your skiing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.